Welcome to the Courageous Conversations podcast, hosted by me, Hannah Chadwick, the director and founder of Fortitude Training. In each episode, I'll be sharing my tales, tips, and techniques with the hope that they'll help you make your work life more positive and productive. I hope you're able to find the hidden gems that you can learn from and utilise to positively impact both your personal and professional life. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics like workplace culture, well-being, diversity, leadership, and team building. I hope you're able to find the hidden gems that you can utilise to positively impact your personal and professional life. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Courageous Conversations podcast. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. We'll kick things off today with a rundown of the good news stories from this past week. Then today's Courageous Conversation is part 2 of embedding diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Then it's Hero of the Week, and finally we'll wrap things up with the positive note. This is the rundown. A poll of 2,000 Americans found that 2/3 of respondents said that quarantine had made them a better person. The survey looked at the positive changes to come from the unprecedented time and how people are reprioritising what they value in life and whether they've changed their outlook on life. The extra time at home gave 70% of the respondents the chance to learn more about themselves. Many of those polled had utilised their extra time to pick up a new hobby, and 27% said they were hoping to achieve a better work-life balance moving forward. Next up, a charity which specialises in helping people learn to forgive has seen a spike in downloads of its online materials since the start of the pandemic. The Global Forgiveness Initiative, based in Scotland, has been attracting attention from people all across the globe. It's now visited by over 250,000 people per month, which is 10 times more than the numbers they saw in 2019. And finally, according to psychologists, the art of self-kindness can positively impact our mental health and aid us in navigating stressful situations. London-based psychologist Dwandri Buitendag recommends a number of techniques to nurture self-kindness, such as maintaining boundaries, like ensuring that you take your lunch break and not working at the weekends. Other suggestions include gratitude journaling to help you focus on the present and see the value in the smaller, everyday things that we often overlook. Now it's time for today's Courageous Conversation. Embedding diversity and inclusion in the workplace, Part 2, Inclusion. So if you remember in the last episode, we focused on diversity and the ways we can ensure we have a diverse workforce that's representative of the world that we live in. We considered how this supports the need of organisations and their clientele too. Having a diverse workforce also helps to minimise the potential for instances of discrimination and breaches of the Equality Act if you're in the UK. So, what is inclusion? Well, it's defined as the act of including or the state of being included, to take in or to comprise as part of a whole or a group. I've seen a few social media posts recently sharing this quote from Liz Fosslien. Diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice heard. When we think of equality and diversity together, we're really referring to the process of recognising both individual and group differences and positively respecting those differences, whether it's in our communities, at home, or in our workplaces. And whilst diversity is concerned with the makeup of what your workforce looks like, inclusion is about the way in which each employee is able to participate and grow within your organisation. Now, inclusion shouldn't just be a we'd like to have in an ideal world type of thing. It should be central to the way that your business operates. It's also imperative if you want to survive and thrive because it's been proven to deliver results. Inclusive teams are twice as likely to meet or exceed their financial targets. They're 6 times more likely to be innovative or agile, and they're 8 times more likely to achieve better business results. Inclusion means that your employees feel seen and feel encouraged to speak their minds and to have their perspectives and opinions heard. I know there are many times I've been in the room where I've made a valid point and it's been completely ignored. Then someone else has made the exact same point and it's been accepted. A study by the Harvard Business Review found that 72% of Black women, 53% of Latinas, and 52% of Asian women say that executive presence at their company is defined as conforming to traditionally white male standards. The respondents felt that they had to compromise their authenticity to enable them to take up leadership positions in their organisations. If your staff feel that they have to pretend to be something other than themselves, whether that's in their appearance, behaviours or thinking, in order for them to be accepted, your organisation isn't really inclusive. Furthermore, your business is missing out greatly on all of that untapped talent that person is probably hiding under a bushel because they feel it won't be accepted if they show their true self. I want you to paint this picture in your mind for a second. Imagine a boardroom full of people who all look roughly the same. They're the same gender, they're around the same age, they're all the same skin colour and ethnicity, they come from the same social status, they don't have any physical or mental conditions, they all earn roughly about the same amount of money, they all share the same religion, and they all have the same interests outside of work. Now, ask yourself, what are the chances of this group of people coming up with innovative ideas that speak to the needs of the general population? Pretty slim, right? Because they're all sharing life experiences and perspectives that are pretty similar. Chances are they're probably going to come up with very similar ideas based on their very similar viewpoints and experiences. Okay, so this time I want you to paint this picture in your mind. Imagine you're in the same boardroom, but this time you've got a mixture of genders. There's a mixture of ages, from 16 to 67. Some people have children, some people don't. There's a range of skin tones and ethnicities. Some people are from working class backgrounds, some are from middle class and upper class backgrounds. You've got people with a range of abilities and health conditions. You've got apprentices and you've got top earners. You've got atheists, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jews. And some people in the room like skydiving, others like going to rock concerts, others like haberdashery, and others like reading. Now, chances are, if you ask this second group of people to come up with innovative ideas, they're going to be a completely mixed bag because you've got a wide range of diverse perspectives and life experiences. When you embrace the differences in your workforce, your employees can truly flourish. They'll feel more confident and comfortable sharing their ideas and different perspectives, and your organisation will benefit massively. You'll see increases in employee engagement and retention rates, and more creative solutions and innovation will naturally result. Employees need to feel psychologically safe and supported at work if you also want them to be engaged and productive. Let's think about ways that leaders can promote inclusion in the workplace. Inclusive hiring and leadership. Ensure that the leaders in your organisation are striving for inclusion. Chances are they're the ones making the hiring decisions. If they're just giving you a workforce of clones, they're doing you a disservice. Diverse teams should comprise different races, ages, life experience, personality types, to name but a few. Seeing that diversity of thought represented often encourages others to feel more inclined to speak up and contribute. Likewise, ensure that your leadership team is representative of the inclusion you're seeking in your wider workforce. It's well known that people hire in their image, choosing people that they feel an affinity with. If your leadership team looks the same, they're probably in turn going to hire people who they feel a natural connection with. It's important that you train your leaders in unconscious bias and conduct unconscious bias evaluations. Doing so will empower your leaders to check their natural biases before making decisions. This isn't just a one and done process. You need to make sure that this is a regular part of your training program to help you stay on top of those natural, unconscious drivers that can cause all of us to unintentionally prevent opportunities for inclusion. Inclusive policy making. Your policies should be as inclusive as possible so as not to unintentionally disadvantage certain groups. The recent situation with school closures and homeschooling gave rise to many firms adopting parenting policies and working from home policies to help support the changing needs of their workforce, who were suddenly thrust into an unforeseen and undesirable position. They had no childcare and were still having to work and often homeschooling too. Policies that take account of the different circumstances of your workforce and provide adaptations and support for their different needs will place you in good stead. I'll give you an example of how policy making can unintentionally exclude or disadvantage people. One organisation I worked for had a policy on taking time off for medical appointments. If you required less than the equivalent of half a working day, you could take this time off and you had to work it back within 1 week. If you needed longer than this for your appointment, you either had to take it off as annual leave or it would go down as a sickness absence strike. After you accumulated a certain number of strikes, actions would be triggered such as objective setting and disciplinaries, etc. On the face of it, it looks fine. Most people wouldn't probably need to take advantage of this, maybe more than 2 or 3 times a year for doctors or dental appointments. But for somebody like me with a serious or long-term health condition or disability, the policy placed them at a significant disadvantage. It only affected me when I suddenly and unexpectedly became ill with a rare bone marrow disease. When my condition was at its worst, I was having to make weekly visits to the specialist unit at the hospital. Now, there are only 2 of these units in the country, and by chance I happen to live in the city where one of them is based. Nonetheless, sometimes I would be there for several hours, or I wouldn't know how long I was going to be in for. Additionally, one of the many side effects of my condition was that it made me extremely tired. The policy put me at a substantial disadvantage compared to colleagues who were in good health. It resulted in me having to use a significant amount of my annual leave, which is intended for you to get a rest away from work, to attend my medical appointments. And where I did take leave under the policy, I had to make the time back within a week, which further added to the side effects of my condition. Focus on the needs of your workforce, not just the provisions you want to make available because it suits your needs. Not everybody fits into a neat little box, and not everybody's circumstances are the same. Create networks and safe spaces. Make sure your organisation is promoting allyship so that employees from diverse backgrounds can advocate for one another and remain accountable in their diversity and inclusion efforts. You don't have to be a part of a particular group to be an ally. You could create a diversity and inclusion group comprised of employees from different backgrounds and different levels within your organisation. They could help organise events or training and help create an organisational culture where employees from all backgrounds feel seen and heard. Where things do go wrong, ensure that complaints of unfair or discriminatory treatment are considered fairly and properly investigated. Denying or covering up instances will come out in the wash eventually. We're all guilty at times of making mistakes or falling short of the standards we'd normally set for ourselves, but it's always best to own up to any wrongdoing or shortcomings and to try and make it right. Don't make inclusion a dirty word. Be comfortable discussing inclusion and what actions you intend to take. Inclusion isn't about taking away anyone else's rights. It's about creating a more level playing field for all of us. When you're not part of the dominant group in your organisation, it's very easy to feel marginalised for speaking up about wanting inclusion. By ensuring that all voices are heard and through celebrating those diverse perspectives, you can help your employees to feel welcome and empowered to make themselves part of the conversation. Regularly seek feedback. If you don't look for something, you probably won't find it, which is great in the short term. But long term, you're only going to harm your organisation if you try and shy away from the inclusion conversation and don't seek feedback about how your employees and your customers feel about your approach to inclusion. Before making decisions and policies, make sure that you seek input from your workforce so that you can be sure that any decisions you make are beneficial for everyone, not just a select few. Additionally, have regular employee surveys and skip-level meetings that will help you to measure the success of your inclusion efforts and to identify areas where there's still work to do. Provide learning opportunities. Cultivate a culture of allyship, empathy, and understanding. Have meetings to discuss current events and social tensions to show your workforce that these issues aren't taboo and that they matter to you and should matter to all of us. This will help to break down the barriers to understanding, address misinformation, and allow those affected to feel supported. Everyone doesn't have to share the same opinions, but creating opportunities to hear from different perspectives in a safe space that's free from judgment can help people to understand and respect each other's differences. Now it's time for Hero of the Week. This week's award doesn't go to an individual, it goes to the Southbank Centre in London and to all the artists who contributed to the Everyday Heroes open air exhibition. The exhibition features poems, paintings and photographs featuring heroes of the pandemic, like nurses, shopkeepers and religious leaders. If you haven't seen the installation yet, it's at the Southbank until November, and you can check it out online via their website too. Now it's time for the positive note. This week's positive note comes from Margaret Keane. The more diverse talent you have around you, the more you're going to be able to innovate. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Courageous Conversations podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to access your podcasts. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget to tune into next week's episode, and until then, take care. Bye for now.